Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. Happy Thursday out there, and we are having a lot of windy conditions across the country here as we head through the backside of the storm system through much of the Midwest and into here the Great Lakes region. Where I live, here have a high wind warning with many areas and high wind warnings and high wind advisories and watches here as well throughout the Great Lakes region and into the Midwest and into the Central Plains here as well with all that dry weather. Now, looking in here for the past 72-hour snowfall accumulation here from the National Weather Service here is showing amounts of around 28 to 30 plus inches across central portions of North Dakota, getting up here into northwestern North Dakota toward the Canadian provinces here. So a bullseye across central portions of North Dakota did reach up to around 40 inches, I think I heard from some of these locations in central portions of North Dakota. Even some healthy snowfall totals getting back into Montana and western North Dakota, getting up to around here 1.5 feet here across portions here of southwestern North Dakota, even up to around 1 foot here into far eastern Montana, and still even some healthy snowfall amounts here into portions of southeastern Montana with about 1/2 foot across those areas, and even 1/2 foot getting down here into portions of northwestern South Dakota as well. So a very historic snowstorm, very historic blizzard, and I hope everybody did stay safe across those areas here during those times as the storm system continues to pull off to the east. Also looking at the Storm Prediction Center's storm reports from yesterday, quite a few wind reports across much of the here mid-south from the Ohio Valley to the Tennessee Valley into the deep south in the Gulf Coast states. Even getting back into Texas, did see some large hail reports here in the northeast Texas around the Dallas-Fort Worth area and getting up toward Texarkana. We saw a lot of wind reports across Tennessee and a lot of trees and power lines with power pole damage here across the Memphis area, getting up toward Nashville here, and even a couple tornado reports here. Preliminary reports here across portions around the Jackson, Mississippi area and getting over toward Birmingham here as well. Even a couple tornado reports getting up just south and east here of Indianapolis and on the far eastern fringe there of Oklahoma and Arkansas border. So as we head into today, this is the categorical day one categorical outlook here from the Storm Prediction Center. Does show a marginal to slight risk zone of some severe weather across here the northeast with a slight risk zone here from around the Washington, D.C. area, maybe just to the north and east, and then getting up here into New Jersey, far eastern New York State, and western portions here of Connecticut and western portions of Massachusetts as well, with a marginal risk extending down here into the central and eastern Carolinas, into Virginia, and even getting down here towards portions of Raleigh, North Carolina, getting down to Richmond, Virginia. Some isolated, widely scattered wind gusts here are possible, some damaging gusts potentially up to 60 miles per hour, especially in the slight risk zone of 15% here probability. And then the hail probability is a lot smaller, but still there with some small to medium-sized hail potential across those zones as well. And the reason why we're seeing this here today, temperatures have warmed up into the upper 70s to near the low 80s across the eastern seaboard here. Some lower 80s being found across eastern North Carolina here on the Outer Banks, seeing temperatures reaching the 80-degree mark. And you couple that here with low 60 dew points and even some upper 50 dew points here up into the northeast, and you will have instability values that will be pushing 1,000 joules per kilogram here, especially as you get down here into the Carolinas with a lot more of those 80s, those lower 80s here and those dew points in the low 60s here, making for a little bit of energy for these thunderstorms, but still locally up to around 1,000 joules per kilogram as you get up into eastern New York State, down through New Jersey, and far eastern portions of Pennsylvania. Thunderstorms here this afternoon will continue to fire up, and they'll push to the east here with a kind of a broken line of storms here developing from central New York State down through east central portions of Pennsylvania around the Pittsburgh area, and then kind of pushing down here through Washington, D.C. area, getting down toward Richmond, Virginia, Asheville, North Carolina, kind of some broken lines of storms. Then this line will kind of fill in a little more as we head into the late afternoon, early evening here, as most of the dynamics do come together with those dew points rising, those temperatures here at peak heating, and also here that we'll be creating some lower to moderate instability values across these areas, and some widely scattered damaging wind gusts, some isolated large hail, and cannot rule out a tornado, but the tornado risk today is very, very low, and then these storms will continue to walk themselves out here often to the Atlantic as we head into this evening, and putting an end to the severe weather risk as we head into tonight. With this here, the reason why this is being here severe watched out for some severe storms with the marginal and slight risk zone is because this wind shear will continue to push east. Seeing some values up here in Pennsylvania and New York State, getting down into western portions of Virginia, approaching here, 60 or so knots. So some pretty decent shear values, and that will kind of prolong these updrafts here, kind of maintain themselves as they push to the east, kind of along this line before they move off here on the coast into the evening hours. The supercell composite, not very high today, some very low values, but still there. So a couple supercells cannot be ruled out, especially where all these dynamics do come together. The highest values I see on this is up into portions of eastern New York State, kind of closer to that closed low as we head up here into the northeast of the United States. Then as we head into tomorrow, we do have another day 2 categorical outlook here for a marginal to a slight risk. The marginal risk does extend from western and middle Tennessee down through northwestern portions of Alabama, north central portions of Mississippi, the entire state of Arkansas, southern Missouri, back into east central portions of Oklahoma, far northeast Texas. This does include Texarkana, Oklahoma City, maybe near the Tulsa region, getting in on that slight risk zone, Little Rock, Conway, and especially around the Fort Smith area, seeing some here slight risk zone for severe weather, with a 15% risk here of possible here severe weather across those zones. I think that that marginal risk here does extend farther into the Memphis area, getting down toward Jackson, Mississippi, and then over toward Birmingham, Tuscaloosa here with time as well. The 2% tornado risk here tomorrow from east central portions of Oklahoma, getting into north central Arkansas, southern Missouri, and western Tennessee. This does include Memphis, Tennessee, getting down toward the Joplin area here, Little Rock, Conway, Jonesboro, getting back over towards Fort Smith, and then over toward the Oklahoma City proper area, getting up toward Tulsa here as well. And then as you can see here, the wind outlook, kind of a 5% low wind risk here across portions of centered on Arkansas, across the mid-south, and then that 15% hail risk here across far eastern portions of Oklahoma, northwestern portions of Arkansas as well. You can see temperatures as we head into tomorrow. A lot of warm, dry air across portions of the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma. You can see temperatures rising the low to mid 90s across portions of the Lubbock area toward Midland, Texas, getting up here into western portions of the state of Oklahoma around the El Reno area, mid 80s. And then here on the northern end of this, here all this warm air, you're going to have those thunderstorms developing here and kind of dropping down into that instability as we head here into the late afternoon tomorrow. Dew points will be rising here into the 60s, especially with southward extent. Lower 70 dew points here showing up around the Houston area, kind of inching its way northward with mid 60 dew points around the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Upper 60 dew points around Texarkana, Little Rock dew points moving into the lower 60s as well. And on the northern plume of that instability is where the thunderstorm activity will be as we head into late tomorrow afternoon here on the northern plume of that here, advecting warm, humid air off the western Gulf. And you can see instability values kind of ranging from 1,000 to generally around 2,000 joules per kilogram, especially as you get into southern portions of Arkansas, northern portions here of Louisiana and northeast Texas, but these storms to the north will kind of be feeding off that instability and kind of dropping almost straight southward as we head into late tomorrow afternoon. The lapse rates are pretty impressive across this zone as well, across that marginal and slight risk zone, especially centered on here the Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas border. Lapse rates will be around 8 to potentially up to around 8.5 centimeters per kilometer. So that means as you go up in the atmosphere, 8 to 8.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer, rather. I cannot talk today, folks. As you go up in the atmosphere here, you will have temperatures cooling here a lot more quickly here than at the surface. When you have all that warm air and humid air in the surface, you go up here a few thousand feet, temperatures will continue to cool very rapidly, and that's what here promotes that lapse rate here, getting up to around those here ranges. So. And then you can see the supercell composite, pretty decent values across portions of eastern and southeastern Oklahoma, northwestern Arkansas, even inching its way down to east central Texas. Like I said, here in the northern fringe of this, we could have some supercellular storms that do develop, that do produce here some large hail. That's why the SPC has outlined a 15% risk of large hail, probably around quarter to ping pong ball size hail with the strongest of storms as we head into tomorrow afternoon. And then shear values, still pretty impressive across this zone here, around 50 to 60 plus knots. And so that will here support updraft organization and maintain this kind of loosely organized MCS as it kind of drops to the south here into portions of the Mid-South and the Gulf Coast states as we head into tomorrow night. And I'll show you this here on the reflectivity. A couple storms bubbling up across far northeast Oklahoma, southwestern Missouri as we head through time around the Joplin area, getting up just around the Tulsa area. Then these storms will kind of fire up a little more on the northern plume of all this warm, humid air and the instability axis here as we head into late tomorrow afternoon. And then starting to see some widely scattered storm development a little farther west, back building into portions of northeastern Oklahoma, rather. And then these storms will kind of congeal into and grow upscale into kind of a loosely organized MCS and kind of drop to the south around here, this instability as we head into tomorrow evening, and kind of move a little almost more southwestward with time here, kind of eating up all that instability here to the southwest into portions of Texas, and will be falling apart as it does so here, coming at kind of an unfavorable time of day, but still feeding off that instability across those areas as well. And then as we go even into our Saturday, do have a marginal risk of severe weather on the SPC's Day 3 categorical outlook, seeing here marginal risk from southeastern portions of Oklahoma, much of east central and northeast Texas, southern and central portions of Arkansas, much of the state of Louisiana and Mississippi, getting down toward Mobile, Alabama here, the northwest Florida Panhandle, as this continues to here have a couple of stronger thunderstorms across this zone here with some isolated wind damage, some isolated large hail, and yes, the potential for a tornado or two is possible. Not looking at any violent tornadoes, though, as we head into this week at all here across this zone. But do be on the lookout for some strong to isolated severe weather with the marginal risk from Dallas-Fort Worth here up toward Texarkana, just south of Little Rock, and then getting into the Jackson, Mississippi area here, Alexandria, Louisiana, Baton Rouge, getting down toward Mobile, and then with Panama City here in Pensacola, Florida, near the Tallahassee region here as we head through time on our Saturday. Also here on our Saturday, there is a Day 3 excessive rainfall outlook from the Weather Prediction Center showing a marginal risk of flash flooding, around 5 to 10% chance of that here from southern Arkansas and central Arkansas around the Little Rock area, getting down towards kind of centered on the Jackson, Mississippi area and central and southern Mississippi, northeastern portions here of Louisiana, and getting into south central portions of Alabama as well, around the Mobile area, getting up toward Birmingham, and then here Tuscaloosa and in the northwest Florida Panhandle as well on Saturday, with a chance for some very isolated instances of flash flooding here. We'll keep you updated on that in the coming days. Then after all this passes by, this trough will continue to push off here into the northern plains with all that cold air across portions of the central and western portions of North Dakota and the Montana areas. You can clearly see where that snowfall here did fall across these areas, where temperatures will be around 30 to 40 plus degrees in the hole here for normal of this time of year. So some very cold air being found across the northern plains, and even inching its way down here toward the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region, with temperatures averaging around 5 to 15 degrees below normal. Kind of a smaller ridge starting to reestablish itself across the Four Corners region here, and that is a sign that another change in the pattern will be here, moving its way in towards as we head into next week. Still that trough digging down here into portions of the Great Lakes and upper Midwest, kind of inching its way towards here the Ohio Valley in the Northeast as we head into our Tuesday next week. You can see temperatures averaging around 10 to 15 degrees below the norm for this time of year, where areas out in the Four Corners will have temperatures around 10 to 20 degrees above the normal here for this time of year as well into early next week. Then that ridge starts to kind of flatten out and broaden across the central and southern plains as we head into our midweek next week, here at least depicted on the GFS run from last night, and it is showing temperatures around 10 to 20 degrees above average here on average across the Four Corners into the central and southern plains and the Gulf Coast states here as well. Within another trough here kind of kicking in here to gear across portions of the northern and central plains, and that may here provide another threat of severe weather across the central and southern plains into the mid-south and southeast as we head into our late week next week, kind of as we break down this ridge once again here across the center of the country. We'll have to see how that works out here, but I do feel confident at least isolated severe weather is possible across the central, southern plains, getting into the southeast and mid-south in the Tennessee River Valley as we head into mid to late next week. And then another ridge will again here be reestablishing itself across the western half of the country as we head into here beyond that period as well. Now, why do I think this? Dew points will be rising into the 60s here, or even close to 70 as we head into Monday. But just look here how the dew points start to rise a little more farther north into portions of Texas, into portions of Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana as we head into Tuesday, early next week. Then this starts to advect even farther north here into the lower Mississippi Valley, into the portions of the lower Missouri Valley. Dew points could be rising into the upper 50s, low 60s as far north as the Wichita area, maybe even up toward the Kansas City metro area, and getting into portions of central and southern portions of Missouri, and then dew points in the 60s there, and that could provide fuel for potentially some isolated to maybe some widely scattered severe weather as we head into the middle and late portion of next week as that ridge does break down. Now, generally looking at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook here from the Climate Prediction Center as we go through Saturday, April 23rd, you can see well above average here temperatures are expected across portions of the desert Southwest and the Four Corners region, even the Western Plains, and then here another trough kind of digging down here across the Pacific Northwest with some showery weather, and then that trough exiting here the eastern side of the country as we head in towards the end of the month as well. And then here that will kind of promote a little more drier than normal conditions across the southeast, the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley. With that trough coming back down here into portions of the Pacific Northwest, can expect likely above normal precipitation across those areas around the Seattle region, getting down toward Portland, Oregon, and into the Idaho region around Boise as well, getting down here towards Northern California, which is welcome news because they are on an ongoing drought across this region as here into portions of much of the West and into the Four Corners region. So that is some welcome news. Then looking at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook here from the Climate Prediction Center, showing a lot of above normal temperatures with a large ridge developing across the country here as we head into the last week or so of April. This is going through Wednesday, April 27th or so. You can see a trough trying to dig back down here, like I said, into the western portion of the United States toward the Four Corners region. And then the storm track zone will look to reestablish itself here in the center of the country here. And that is what the Climate Prediction Center is signaling at. The Climate Prediction Center is signaling that here above normal precipitation is possible, if not likely, across the northern plains and really just much of the western 2/3 of the country, with the eastern quarter to half of the country here in below normal precipitation possible here as well toward the end of the month under that ridge that will be really being well established across the country and moving from west to east toward the late week here of April. Now, looking at the climate forecasting systems kind of model as we get a little farther into April here and toward the last week or so of April and going into early May, I am starting to become a little more concerned that another surge of warm air will be pushing up into the central and southern plains, even up into portions of the mid-Mississippi Valley region, up into the areas that have seen, 60s this week, could be returning kind of a similar pattern as we head in towards the very late portion of April into early May. And this kind of will continue to push east here with that very large ridge that could be extending all the way up toward the Canadian provinces again. Another large, massive trough here developing across portions of the western United States, like the Climate Prediction Center is showing. And that will promote here a lot of warm air across the eastern United States. And right in the thick of things here, we could have a lot of severe weather potential again here. We'll keep you posted on that as we head toward early May. And so we'll keep you posted on that here in the coming videos. But it does show dew points rising in the lower 60s as far north as Nebraska, southern Iowa, northern portions of Missouri, northern and northeastern portions here of Kansas, and that only just lifts continuously up to the north here. Very similar looking style of setup as we had this past week. So that does make me concerned that potentially another severe outbreak potentially could be looming at the very end of April, going into the first few days here of May. We'll have to see how that works out, and that will continue to evac moisture all the way up into the Great Lakes region potentially as we head into the first day or so of May. So we'll have to watch the storm system with a very potent cold front and dry line here behind that as well. But the finer details are not here kind of sketched out really here. We have the low pressure system could develop really anywhere, but I do expect some type of major storm system to develop toward the end of the month into early May. So we'll have to keep tabs on that. And it is already showing this far out, a couple weeks out, and already showing some decent CAPE values here of surface-based CAPE around 1,000 to 2,000 plus joules per kilogram here from the central and southern plains, and then getting over towards here the mid-Mississippi Valley region. We could have Cape values up as high as around 1,000 to 1,500, potentially up into the upper Midwest as we head toward the end of April as well. And this will kind of elongate itself as the storm potentially starts to shear out a little bit once again as we head into the first day or so of May. And then going through the rest of April, this is what you can expect. A very active pattern continuing here across much of the country. A lot more here precipitation across the northern plains, the Great Lakes, getting down to the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, and the southeast. Also some more decent precipitation across parts of the northeast. And unfortunately across portions here of the desert southwest into southern California, not looking for much promise here with precipitation through the end of April here. Hopefully we can get some more precipitation here in towards May, but is looking promising for northern parts of California, northern Nevada, into portions of Oregon, Washington, some areas in drought out here to the west for some promising here rainfall. It won't erase your drought by any means, but it will here kind of help and alleviate some of the major drought concerns across those areas as we head toward the end of the month. So that is looking very possible as we head towards, the first day or so of May, trying to kind of erase a little bit of that very long-term drought that they've been in the Southwest. So thank you for watching here. Do be sure to like my video and to subscribe to my channel here and leave any comments you have below. I always appreciate looking at those. And like I said, remember to subscribe to my channel here. My channel is growing. I'm hoping to get to around 100 subscribers by the end of next week here, so you guys can do it. I'll keep you ahead of all the storms, and we'll do this together. So thank you, everybody, and have a great Thursday out there.